OverDrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Our best bets later in the hour. Jesse Marsch in studio. I caught up with him earlier this morning. Head coach of the men's national team. They got the Nations League semifinal in a couple of months. They're playing Mexico in the semis, and then if they get through that, likely the Americans in L.A., right, going for their first cup in a long, long time. We know the World Cup will be here just over 500 days away from the World Cup down at BMO Field and, of course, also in Vancouver. So caught up with Jesse earlier. Great convo with him. He'll join me in studio a little bit later this hour. Darren Dreger coming up here in a few minutes. I have a list. It is Thursday, right? We do Hayesy B listing on Thursday, Hayesy B's list. And I figured I'd focus on the captains. We've been talking a lot about the captain of the Maple Leafs today, right? Austin Matthews had some commentary last night about how he didn't love the lack of energy in the crowd after that Ryan Reeves fight early in the game last night. So I want to be clear here. This list is based on the regular season, the remainder of the regular season. It does not include the playoffs because that would be a completely different conversation altogether.
Right.
Okay?
I don't understand. Like, this is about Leaf captains?
No, the 7 Canadian captains. The 7 Canadian captains which ones have the most pressure to perform down the stretch for their respective team. Okay? The 7 Canadian captains.
Like
That's 7.
Right.
I have Adam Lowry at 7 of the Winnipeg Jets. Now, for multiple reasons. One, he's hurt now and he's going to be out for a while. Okay, I have to take that into consideration. He's hurt. But also, that team's been so good. They got a big overtime win last night in Colorado. That was big. You notice that you can take Utah out of Arizona, but you can't take Arizona out of Utah. Remember Bruce?
They're just irrelevant.
But remember Bruce Cassidy, like last year, is like, no disrespect to Arizona, but Scott O'Neill went nuts when they lost to Utah a couple nights ago.
Yeah.
Right? You lose to Utah, and a coach of a good team is going to go crazy.
There's no disrespect to Arizona.
Yeah, no disrespect to Utah, but we can't play like that. So, anyway,
Of
Scott
course
O'Neill
it's
went crazy.
disrespect to
It's
Utah.
Remarkably
I got a feeling that
disrespectful.
owner in Utah is not going to put up with it, though.
Yeah, I think he's got some resources, and it's going to take them a little bit of time. But they've got a lot of young players, and, yeah, we'll see what comes of it in Utah. But Scott O'Neill went crazy the other night. The Jets responded with a big win. Adam Lowry of the Winnipeg Jets at 7. Due to injury and the fact that they've been great this year. They've been the best Canadian team all year. Also, he's an impact player, but he's not a superstar on that team.
Right.
Number 6, Connor McDavid. All right? Vigilante. Connor McDavid. He is a vigilante,
Goon.
right? He's a goon, and he's currently suspended, but they're all about the playoffs. I don't think they care who they play in the first round. I'm sure they'd love to catch Vegas. I'm sure they'd like to play a wild card team, maybe avoid LA in the first round. But I think of all the Canadian teams, Leafs included, they don't care about the regular season. They just want to get there, punch a ticket. McDavid at 6. Michael Backlund of the Calgary Flames at 5. They've been really impressive this year based on expectations.
It's all flowers. Like, it's just bonus.
But that's what it is. Now, you got a chance to do something special and actually get in. So there still is some pressure on him, right? He's a guy who's going to play on your second or third line. They're in the hunt because Vancouver hasn't taken advantage of the opportunity with that second wild card. St. Louis. Calgary's there. Backlund's playing every night. He's not a young guy, but he's playing, and he's playing pretty well. And he's generally been on that second line and putting up decent minutes and pretty decent production. So Backlund is at 5. Number 4 of the Canadian captains with pressure to perform throughout the rest of the regular season. Number 4, I got Austin Matthews. Okay, I have Austin Matthews at 4 because I do think, unlike Edmonton, it's important the Leafs hold on to the 1 seed. I think it would be imperative and very, very significant if they could hold on to the 1 seed, avoid Florida or Tampa in the first round.
Yeah.
Avoid the state of Florida in the first round. Do
You
yourself a
can't fall
favor.
asleep.
Good idea.
You can't fall asleep for 3 weeks, no matter where you are in the East, man. Like,
Right. Exactly.
Top of the standings, I don't care. Like, you fall asleep for 3 weeks, everybody is charging. Like, Ottawa, Montreal, they just don't want the wild card. They want they want more, man.
They're getting very, very horny out there,
Yeah.
in terms of
Mega.
like chasing different, spots in the standings.
They're blue chewing up the scoreboard.
Yes, they absolutely are. And another thing with Matthews, he's a new captain, right? This is your first year. Now you're talking. You're pretty free with the media, which I like. I want to see him be more outspoken and being more honest and more comfortable. But unlike Backlund and McDavid, Lowry, Matthews in a bit of a different position. He's at 4. Number 3 of the Canadian captains with pressure to perform down the stretch through the regular season. I have Nick Suzuki at 3. Again, the Habs are right there. They are closer to Calgary, I think, in terms of like house money. You know, they've exceeded expectations. They've been great recently. They've gotten themselves back in. But that market is so crazy right now. Like Montreal's alive for the first time in years, and it's great to see. They are alive, man. They're alive. The Bell Center's going wild. They cannot get enough Montreal Canadiens hockey and chatter. And he's a young captain, but he's a really important player for them. And I think you've gone this far. You're into late January. You're in a playoff position. You got to close it now. You might as well. Why look back on it and miss and say, well, that was just a building block season? Why not take advantage right now if you're Montreal?
Exactly.
Nick Suzuki at 3. Quinn Hughes at number 2. Vancouver's got to get in. Now, it is tumultuous out there. It's a soap opera. As the captain, you got to find a way to quiet things down, whether it's JT Miller or Elias Pettersson.
He's the best player on the ice every night.
He's been outstanding, but the pressure doesn't stop, in my opinion, because he's been great the first 48 games.
I do understand what you're saying.
He's got to be great.
Like, he is, though.
Okay,
it's
keep
a double.
It up.
There's two ways to that. It's like there's a bunch of stuff over there that needs to be taken care of, and you just keep being amazing because he is every night. You know what I mean?
He is every single night. But again, unlike Montreal, Calgary, to a lesser extent, Ottawa, Vancouver's got to get in.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it may be Quinn Hughes on his own that has to do that. Because I don't know if you can trust Demko. I don't know if Miller's going to be there beyond tonight. I don't know if Pettersson's going to come alive.
Like, they could fix the Miller situation and make a move or whatever, but if he doesn't start stopping puck, they're screwed.
They're in big trouble. He's their guy.
Trouble.
He's their number one. They paid him. They've committed to him, and that's what I'm saying with Hughes. I agree with you. He's been phenomenal. He might have to do it on his own. That's how much pressure is on Quinn Hughes down the stretch. And number 1 is Brady Tkachuk. It's Brady Tkachuk. He's the face of the organization. He's been there forever. 8 games without a point. Going into Boston tonight, they're in a playoff spot. They've got to do it. They pronounced that the rebuild was over 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Brady Tkachuk, most pressure of any captain on a Canadian team to perform throughout the rest of the regular season. That's a list right there.
I like that list.
I'm sorry, I don't think you can argue with me. Tried to, but I snapped him right back into shape.
I think Hughes.
Feschuk, he says it every week when he compiles the list, and then he always finishes it up with, "That's a list."
It's a masterpiece.
No one pumps their own tires. Ask Dregs what he thinks of the list, Hayes.
Okay, here's Darren Dreger, our TSN hockey insider. Dregs, I don't know if you can see the list, but
No.
Okay, I went 1 through 7, the Canadian captains, the 7 Canadian captains, issuing who I believe have the most pressure on them individually to perform for their team through the rest of the regular season. Not into the playoffs, but ends after game 82. I had Brady Tkachuk 1, Quinn Hughes 2, Nick Suzuki, Austin Matthews, Michael Backlund, Connor McDavid, Adam Lowry. That's my list 1 through 7.
Whew.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I like it.
Okay.
Brady Tkachuk would be top of the list for me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're going to get what you get from Quinn Hughes, and that's just, Norris Trophy winning play. One man can't do it all. And, the Vancouver Canucks have gone through a world of turmoil already. I might move Austin up a bit higher, too, here, fellas. Yeah.
All
but,
right.
Darren, it's regular season.
Just regular season, yes. That is important to point out. Go ahead, continue.
No.
In the playoffs, it's a totally different list.
Matthews vaults to 1 after that.
Yeah, Matthews will be at the top, and McDavid shoots up the list, too, because he's got pressure to perform come playoff time. Yeah.
Well, why are we talking about a regular season list outside of
the list sucks. The list sucks.
All right. Okay, let me say this. Go ahead.
You could cut it off. Hold on. You could cut, so it's Ottawa, it's Montreal, and it's Vancouver, and maybe Calgary, right? Because they're on the cut lines. Beyond that.
So there's no pressure on Lowry, McDavid, and Matthews to do anything the rest of the regular season. That's what you're saying. That's what you're telling me.
That's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
But, do you expect that Austin Matthews is going to go backwards? I don't. I don't think Connor McDavid is going to be less impactful than he is. Adam Lowry is the heart and soul of the Winnipeg Jets.
Right.
So I don't think that there's any more pressure on those 3 guys.
Okay. Well, I do think there's an important distinction that Montreal, Ottawa, Vancouver are in a different category in terms of what we're discussing now, right? And for all different reasons. Montreal's playing with house money. They've been red hot for a month, and now they're in a playoff hunt. Ottawa has been telling us for years, rebuild's over. Yeah. We're legit. We're going to make it, and they're a Jekyll and Hyde type team. And Vancouver's just a circus. Like all three of them are totally different, yet they're all connected because we don't know if any of them are going to make the playoffs, or maybe all three do.
Now, the one thing you've been successful in here as an award-winning host is stirring the pot and generating content.
Yes.
And that's what you've done here with this little work project, so I applaud you.
Well, and what I'm going to hear from Canadians around the country, like, oh, really? You think Quinn Hughes? Wait till Vancouver gets a hold of that one. Because they're so receptive to people in Toronto speaking about their team. They really
Dregs,
do.
Speaking
love
of
it.
Vancouver, Dregs, how much pressure is on them to get something done? Hayes just mentioned the goaltender, but they got to resolve what the hell's going on out there before it's too late and they lose the season.
Yeah, and it is definitely starting to feel that way, which seems strange because they've gone through a world of ridiculous speculation and some well-placed speculation on two of the players, right? And that's, of course, JT Miller and Elias Pettersson. Now, the focus seems to be narrowing on JT Miller with good reason. But I can't sit here as we're having this conversation and tell you with any level of knowledge that there's an imminent deal with JT Miller. I can't. And those closest to JT Miller have no idea. Now, it doesn't mean that Patrick Albee, the general manager, can't pull JT Miller aside and say, hey, we do have something we're going to present to you and your agent in the next 2 hours. So here it comes. That could happen very quickly. That's what most expect is going to happen at some point, but nobody can pinpoint when that is. And I guess it speaks to the Vancouver Canucks not getting the package that they feel they need for JT Miller. Because there's enough interest. There's 6-7 teams probably that are at least tire kicking on JT Miller. But because of everything we've already talked about and the pressure of the Vancouver Canucks to make the playoffs and to do all these things, they need to get players in this deal back that can help them this year. And obviously they don't have enough to make a deal.
Well, in terms of the Canadian teams in the East, is JT Miller just dead? Do you believe he's dead set on the States, like going to the U.S. if he's going to go anywhere, or would he be open to going anywhere else in Canada? And if so, would any of the other Canadian teams be calling on him?
Well, I'm sure everybody's called, Brian. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that's just your due diligence as a general manager. And whether you're Brad Treliving or Kevin Cheveldayoff, I don't think it matters. I think you have to make that call and then find out at that point. But even if Toronto and all 6 Canadian teams outside of Vancouver are on this guy's no-fly zone, does that even matter? Why would that matter? I mean, he's got a full no-move clause. Mm-hmm. So, automatically he doesn't want to go anywhere by virtue of negotiating that into his contract. But there is a willingness. If there is a good fit, my sense is that JT Miller would be willing to waive that no-move clause. So I think that all general managers, especially the contending teams in Toronto and Winnipeg, would be in that conversation, of course, would be calling and asking. But even if there's a willingness, if you're Toronto here, fellas, or you're Winnipeg, go down the list. It doesn't matter. How do you break apart your lineup to bring in JT Miller? And how many teams is this now going to be for Miller? 4?
Yeah.
That's
Rangers, Tampa, Van, and then...
And then why hasn't it worked in Vancouver? There's got to be a little bit of buyer beware here from the management groups. That everybody loves the idea of JT Miller, and I do too, because I love the way he plays the game when he's on it. But, he's faced some challenges this year, both on and off the ice. This we know. How much is that a factor moving forward to go along with the pieces that you're going to have to give away to get him? And if it didn't work inside that room in Vancouver, and maybe he wasn't a great fit with the other teams, are you absolutely rock solid certain that he could be and will be a difference maker to push you into a higher stratosphere of contending? That would be a conversation that would be lengthy, I would think, for any team.
So Dregs, Leafs lose last night to the Blue Jackets 5-1. They also lose Matthew Knies to an apparent injury. What are you hearing on that front, and how do you think the Leafs might proceed? Assuming Knies is going to be out for some period of time, how do you think they'll fill that hole?
I mean, internally, I guess, for the short term. The feedback that I got earlier today was that it wasn't viewed as being serious, and he's not going to miss a significant amount of time, maybe a few days. But again, I'm hesitant in saying that, and I'm not knocking the approach of the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's just we've seen other examples with their better players where they go down the path of caution and being more careful. And I think everybody's on board with that. But that was what I was told earlier today, and I haven't heard anything that would push me away from that at this point. So I guess we'll have to check back in 3-4 days and see how he's feeling and where he's at that point. So I think they're going to have to just find a way to do it internally. Got a rash of injuries that has taken its toll and may take its toll moving forward on this club, again, on the short term.
Dregs, who do you think the first couple GMs to send out a mass text to the other ones saying, "Have at it, fellas, name the price, come and get what I'm cooking over here"?
Well, it's a good question, and honestly, that's a big part of why things are moving slowly right now on the trade front. And we go through this on an annual basis, right? When you get to just past the midway point, different this year because you've got the Four Nations looming, and there are general managers who would prefer to get some business done ahead of the break. But you got to have a partner to work with, and because of the races, certainly the races in the East, I think that has kind of stopped things up a little bit. The sellers haven't been defined officially yet, and any of the teams that we know are in a selling mode or just have to be because of where they're positioned in the standings and have no hope of making the playoffs, they don't really have the pieces that you're interested in anyway. So I think it's still a wait and see right now for a lot of clubs.
Yeah. We got to get something cooking here, man. We need someone to start really, really selling. That's what we're looking for.
I thought you guys did that last night with Jonas.
Yes. Well, listen, Jonas has got a 10-pack of players that are on the radar.
I know.
Right,
yeah.
As you know, and Ryan O'Reilly's at the top of that list.
Well, okay, so let's just stop right there. Mm-hmm. And I can understand that because of the history Ryan O'Reilly has with Craig Berube, right? But look, we've forgotten something in this process. And you
he
can
plays
put any
for the
name on any
Preds,
list.
maybe?
Well, yeah, you're right. But Toronto wanted to keep Ryan O'Reilly. Toronto tried to extend Ryan O'Reilly. Ryan O'Reilly didn't want to sign and extend in Toronto, so why would he want to come back?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and he doesn't have trade protection, but there's no way Barry Trotz is going to do that with a highly respected player like Ryan O'Reilly. If he gets to a place where he's going to trade Ryan O'Reilly and Ryan O'Reilly is willing to go and wants to go somewhere else, I'm not 100% saying it can't happen and to come back to Toronto. But there are other contending teams that could be a fit for him as well.
Well, that's another part of it. Like, obviously, we're focused on Toronto, and Jonas was in the Athletic, but other teams might want to call him as well because, he's got this year and 2 left.
Yeah,
I'm talking about O'Reilly, and at a reasonable price. I think it's $4.5 million
right.
per.
Exactly.
So other teams, I'm sure, will be kicking tires. It just seems like, and naturally, it's the same way every single year. It's centers and defensemen. That's what everyone's looking for. Centers and defensemen.
Always.
Yeah, it'll be no different this year.
No, and every team that I asked, Toronto included, I'll throw Calgary into that mix, Winnipeg to a point, they're all giving the same response today. Yeah, good luck. Can't find them. Mm-hmm. There's no tree in your backyard where you can go pluck one off. So let's hope it stays that way until March 7th. Otherwise, O-Dog's going to be looking for ketchup for his hamburger.
Oh, yeah. We'll really get some good bits cooked up for the O-Dog on March 7th. I can't wait for that. Listen, I think that's become more and more clear for me in Toronto is, there's been so much focus on that center position, and I have no doubt they're looking around and they'd like to address that. But I think it's deja vu. We're back with the same question of who is Morgan Rielly going to play with? Who's he going to play with? What can you expect out of Morgan Rielly? Because I think in a perfect world, Ekman-Larsson is on a third pairing. I think they came into the season perfect world. Ekman-Larsson and Yanni Hakanpää are your third pairing. Two veteran, big bodies. You look over the past, Cup champs, including last year, Ekman-Larsson was on the third pairing. That's generally what you have. Veteran guys on the cheap with some size that can play in a variety of different ways, but you can't stress them too much come playoff time, especially over a long run. And then you got Tanev with McCabe. Who's Rielly playing with? He can't play with. If they can't be Philip Myers, it can't be Connor Timmins. It can't be.
I guess, but Morgan would say this. It can't always be about who he's playing with. He obviously needs to start playing better.
Yes.
Right, and then maybe it becomes less of a need and more of a want. Who's the best available upgrade on defense leading up to March 7th, and maybe that becomes less of a need and more of a want if Morgan is playing the way that they need him to play. And the belief is that he will get there.
But what is it? The Dregs, when you look at that, do you see that as Rielly having some growing pains in terms of trying to fit into the Berube style, or what do you make of it?
Yeah, I think so, but it's probably gone on long enough. The last game wasn't a good one for Morgan or for a number of Leafs. Game before, I think the sense internally was that he'd played better, and they were hoping that the trend had kicked over and away they go. Berube has tried to change some things in Rielly's game, and the coaching staff of the Toronto Maple Leafs, they push to get him to defend harder and take some of the risk out of his game that, historically we've seen. But I think to this point, they'd be happy with a little bit of balance. Like, if you need more of the green light to get going, then grab that green light and run with it for a while and see if that works. And so far, he doesn't look comfortable. I think we'd all agree Morgan Rielly doesn't look comfortable. But I'm sure there's a lot of conversation with him and the coaching staff over how he gets more comfortable with the way he's playing.
Well, that'll be my next list. The assistant captains on Canadian teams with the most pressure to perform.
Wow.
Can't wait for that one. That's going to be a doozy of a list.
Morgan Rielly up high?
I think Mo's got to be on that list. I think Morgan Rielly will be high.
How about this? We just touched on an insider trading. How about the most anxious owners, general managers, and coaches with their star players getting ready to play in the Four Nations face-off?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Hey?
That's a really good one. Okay.
There you go.
I'll cook something up on that. I love it. Sure you guys will all agree. There's nothing to disagree with. Whenever I come up with a list, everything is just clear-cut. Bulletproof stuff. All right, Dregs. Thanks for doing this.
Okay, boys. Have a good night.
Darren Dreger, a TSN Hockey Insider. The thing is about the Four Nations, the owners are going to be making money on that. Right? It's a league revenue event.
Yeah.
So, you'll hold your breath. You'll be nervous. You're a star. You want them to get through. But you're also looking forward to the money that could be coming in.
Wow.
They sell tickets.
But you're also, Doug, you're also well aware the last time they had best on best hockey out in a little place called Sochi, Russia, New York Islanders found out their best player broke his leg.
Yeah, and he was out for 6 weeks or something.
Yeah,
more than that. I think Tavares. Yeah, I think he was done for the year at that point. Yeah, that's
your biggest fear, man. Somebody going there and blowing something out, and it's like there goes the whole year. And if if you put Austin Matthews in that spot, basically season's cooked, man.
Yeah, that's trouble, man.
That's big time trouble.
Yep. You don't even want to think about it. You just hope go there, play, everyone have a good time, everyone compete. Maybe Austin takes something out of it, Marner takes something out of it.
Thankfully, Joe Wall isn't on Team USA.
No. Well, yeah, that's true. I mean, Hellebuck, though, he'll play. Hellebuck's not going to say, I'm taking a night off.
No, I mean.
Not how he's wired. He'll be playing.
It is a little out of control now, the way we worry about guys getting.
Everyone's worried all the time. Yeah, it never stops.
But, dude, it's Hayes, I know you say that, like, the way he's wired. Like, do you not think Joe Wall wants to play, or do you think he's just got an appetite of, no, I need this time? Because there's some guys, they will not put their gear on unless they're 100%. Mm-hmm. Which I don't, like I said, I don't think that's the job. Like, you want to make all the money, you want this and you want that. Part of it is playing the full season or whatever, If it's a starting goaltender, whatever people dictate or determine, that's the starting goaltender. It's not what you want, or like it's not the job.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I it rings true, and I get it. And I don't know Joseph. Well, I don't know his
imagine
mentality,
like Joel Embiid being like, I want $50 million a year, but if my knee's not I don't play back-to-backs. I give.
Yeah.
Like that's not the job.
Don't play in Denver ever.
Yeah.
Won't do it. I just don't. I don't like the air up there,
dude. It's crazy.
It's become the job. Like these guys, the trend has allowed guys
because
to
the organizations have enabled it.
Exactly. The sport and the commissioners have allowed it. Everyone's guilty of it. Everybody
no kidding.
is. All right, Jesse Marsch is a man. He's not going to accept his players not playing. Load management doesn't apply to the men's national team. All right, caught up with Jesse Marsch earlier today. We'll catch up with him next. All right, Best Bets powered by FanDuel a little bit later in the hour. A bunch of Canadian teams playing in the NHL. You get the Raptors down in Atlanta, so we'll get to that a little bit later on. And we got the Nations League semi-final coming up in L.A. in a couple of months in March. And we're just over 500 days away from the World Cup starting in 2026, which is going to fly by, man. We're more than 2 years removed from the World Cup in Qatar. That's how quickly it flies by. And Jesse Marsch, the head coach of the men's national team, he was doing the rounds here at TSN earlier today. He stopped in studio with me. I got the chance to catch up with him. Here's my chat with Jesse Marsch. Look who we have here, the head coach of the men's national team, Jesse Marsch. Jesse, great to see you. Does it feel like Wisconsin out here for you, this weather in Toronto right now?
Yes, it's very reminiscent of the winters in Wisconsin, except I always drove really bad cars and the heater never worked, and so it's nicer now. Yeah.
What about like the idea of training? Because you guys have to be prepared. Obviously, there's a lot indoors, outdoors. But I can recall like CONCACAF and the build-up towards Qatar. Like there were some incredible outdoor games at BMO Field where the weather was absolutely absurd.
And Edmonton, right?
And in Edmonton was ice.
Yes.
It was absolutely ice.
I was in Europe at that time. I think I was in Germany. And I watched that game. You know, and like, you know, you have to get up at like 3 a.m. to watch it. And I remember hearing that they were playing the Mexicans and in the U.S. and in Edmonton and in the snow. And it was incredible. It was a great strategy. It
was. I mean, it obviously worked, and it was an incredible build-up, and CONCACAF went really well for Canada. And the reason you're in here, for multiple different reasons, but we're almost 500 days away from the World Cup finally arriving, and it's going to be in Canada, it'll be in Toronto, it's going to be in Vancouver. And obviously the weather will be beautiful at that point, undoubtedly. But the idea of building up towards it and the hype, like we're getting close, man. We're more than 2 years removed from Qatar, which is amazing. Like it's going to be here before you know it. What's it like as you get, inside 500 days?
Yeah, look, the biggest reminder I have is I've been on the job for like 8 months and it's gone like that. Right. So we have to have a real urgency to what we do, how we work. A big part of it is obviously preparing the team, right? But they're all with their clubs right now, and they're training, and I give little reinforcements to them, and I'm watching them play. But it's also doing some fundraising. We need to reinforce the CSA and the infrastructure of what we're creating. We need to create a more robust youth system. We need to align the sport in the country and with the women's team. The women just hired a new coach, Casey Stoney, and we're really excited about her. So, there's a lot of work to be done sort of behind the scenes that can make sure that we support the team in all the right ways so we're prepared.
Jesse Marsch with us. I'm curious about that, the communication with players when they're with their club teams. And, like, as a coach, I'm sure you're aware of that. You don't want to step on toes.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're not giving tactical advice necessarily, but you're always thinking through the lens of the Canadian team.
Yeah.
Take us through that process when you're watching the guys, scouting the guys, seeing them play in certain formations and systems and what have you, and trying to figure out how's that going to work into my puzzle once I get them with my team.
Look, there's in Europe, right, there's some guys that are performing at an incredibly high level right now. There's some guys that are struggling to establish themselves with the team. And, I'm checking in with them. I go to matches, a lot, so I get to see them before or after the game. Maybe we have coffee the next day and just talk about how things are going. Like, one of the things people lose track of sometimes is these guys are still young, and they're over in Europe. They're fighting every day. It's not easy. Maybe it's a different language, a different culture. They're lonely. And so part of it is just, like, supporting them, and being there. And when things are tough, saying, hey, you got to keep going. Like, this isn't easy, and you got to be up for the challenge. And this will make you better. This will make you stronger. So And then there is still some part of encouraging, look, this is what we think is going to be important for the national team. Make sure you're fit. Make sure you're getting in the gym. Make sure you're playing aggressively so that the adaptation when you come back with us is as smooth as possible.
In terms of preparing again for the World Cup that will be in Toronto, be in Vancouver, be on Canadian soil, like you just mentioned, the preparation that goes into tactics and the physical side of things and making sure you're in shape and everything that comes with, okay, the whistle's gone. Now you're within the lines. You're going to go play. I don't think you're overly concerned about where their mentality will be at that point.
No.
But in terms of off the pitch and preparing for something that is so monumental for the country, how do you chip away at that preparation over the next 500 days that these guys are representing the country at home?
Yep.
And it's going to be unlike anything our country's ever seen before.
So, like I said, I took the job about 8 months ago. And when I came into the job, I really challenged them I said, grow up, and I didn't mean to insult them, but one of the things I said to them was that too many of them played professional soccer because they were good at it and it was fun, and not enough of real pursuit of excellence, right? And I talked about, at the very first day we got together, I talked about the vision toward 2026, which was 2 years away at that point. And I said that we have to start the process now. We have to commit to the physicality and the intelligence of what we want to be and how we're going to commit to it on a day-by-day basis of when we're together, because we're not together all the time. And then through that, it's building the mentality to make sure that the belief system is so strong that it makes us feel unbeatable when those matches come. And so I can only say that they've responded incredibly well. And they see the reasons that I try to do the things that I do with them, that I say the things that I create really high demands for them, because it's the only way for us to achieve the goals and the dreams that they have for what it means to play in a home World Cup.
Right. And I think I can speak, as a Canadian, like there's been somewhat of a disconnect, I would say, over the last 20 years prior to what happened, from 2019, 2020 through CONCACAF up to Qatar, where obviously it popped and they made it back to the World Cup.
Yeah.
There was this really dark period for a good portion of my life. I'm born in the early 80s, so 86 when they made it, I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Through the 90s and 2000s, it was like the national team is not on the radar, they're not going to win. And I think the best way to get, the average Canadian on board is the ability to believe in the confidence of the group. And I think what you did at Copa America really set the tone for a lot of that.
Yep.
The fact that you made it to the semis, the fact that you competed with Argentina, you almost had it in that third place match.
Yep.
The confidence within the group and the importance of that to exude throughout the rest of the country and for everyone else to jump on board. Do you see that, and how important is that?
Yeah, and let's even start with, so the previous coach, John Herdman, had helped the team win CONCACAF to go to the 22 World Cup. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the players were disappointed that they weren't able to get more out of that World Cup, but I think those experiences have equipped them with more to understand what the games are like. And then when I came in, and my experiences that I have in Europe and coaching the game at the high level and the mentality of what it takes to be successful against the best players and best teams, I think together all these things, the chemistry of what we've created now and that has been created, has meant that there's a better belief system, there's a better understanding, there's more expertise and experience for what these games require. And the style of play that we've created is dynamic, is about speed, is about power. And that accesses the true potential and qualities of these players. And now you start to see truly how talented they are.
Well, when you look at Copa America and that experience, that first match against Argentina, and they slow play you guys coming out in the half, and I was watching it, I was texting group chats with buddies, and we're losing our minds. Why aren't they out there? Yeah. Who does this Messi guy think he is? What are they doing to us? We're playing, we're prepared, we're ready to go.
Yeah.
And, obviously those are tactics. They're veteran tactics. We know what Argentina is and what they represent on the international stage and what they ended up doing in the tournament. But I'm curious if you saw a difference in the way Argentina approached Canada from game one of the group stage to that semifinal. Did you see anything different?
Look,
feel anything different?
Yes. And we were also, I think, in that 2.5 weeks in between those two matches, we grew. They knew we were a good team. Like the coach said to me at the end of the first match when it was over and they beat us 2-0, he said, "You guys were physically too much for us." And I was like, "We just lost. What do you?"
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense.
Right.
But I understood what he said because we played to our strengths and we used our speed and athleticism and power and we challenged them. And so, yeah, of course, then when we got to the semifinal, I tell you, we were then tired. I hadn't made a lot of changes. Most of the games that we played went to the final whistle, which meant that I had to be a little bit more careful about the kinds of subs that I made. I didn't rotate enough because we were just starting the process with the team. But that was one of the things that we learned is in tournament play, we have to develop not just the identity of what we're creating, but also the breadth and the width of the player pool so that throughout tournament play, we can draw on more players and we can depend on more players, which will allow us to be more fresh and more prepared for later stages in the tournament.
Jesse Marsch with us, head coach of the men's national team, just over 500 days away from the World Cup. And of course, we will co-host with the Americans and with Mexico. And the U.S., Mexico, Panama, they're waiting for you at the Nations League, right? You got a semifinal against Mexico in a couple of months in L.A. How significant would that be for the growth of this program if you can find a way to win this?
Yeah, I think quietly, internally, we've had our eye on this for months.
Why so?
Because we didn't just want Copa America to be a one-off. You know, we wanted to make sure that we use that as a platform for confidence and belief in the team to continue to push and grow and develop. You know, since then, we beat America in the U.S. for the first time in 67 years. We've now achieved our highest FIFA ranking of all time at 31. And I think it's set us up for a big challenge, right? To now see if all of the lessons that we've learned, all the progress that we've made, now to put it to test in a semifinal and a final that if we get there would probably require us beating both Mexico and the U.S. This is now in our region as big as it gets. So we know how difficult that will be, but we believe we can achieve that.
Yeah, and in terms of the players that kind of represent your program, Alphonso Davies and Jonathan David, among others, and now that they've been with the program for a while, like you said, you've only been on the job for 8 months, but you're familiar with their history and their come up, so to speak, and what they did through CONCACAF into Qatar. How significant do you think that is, like a veteran presence? And now that these guys have lived it, like you said, beating the Americans in the U.S., highest FIFA ranking, been to a World Cup. Now you're going into a Nations League where you guys are the top seed at this point, going into the Final Four. Yeah. Like how much of that success do you think might actually be about just them growing up? Them getting that message you talked about when you arrived.
You know, I've been very clear that this is a Canadian national team, and I'm so impressed with the qualities of the men in the team, like their selflessness, their togetherness, their desire to achieve for the country and for the national team. And in there, I've also kind of talked about arrogance. You know, and I always say, like, this is America's #1 export.
You guys do own that.
Yes. And so, but, you know, arrogance isn't a bad thing. You know, in sports, you have to have self-belief and like creating this sense that we're not just underdogs anymore, but that we're good, we're talented, and we deserve to be here, and we deserve to win. And then backing it up with the work, the performances, the details, the intelligence. This has been what the process has been. And so, you know, I feel like this has been a really good fit for me. I'm really honored to be the Canadian national team coach. And I think it's a situation where, you know, it's a good fit for what the players need, for what I need. Our chemistry together is really strong. And I think we're really enjoying the process of the potential of what we can create.
Right. And you speak of the arrogance and the confidence. Has that broken through CONCACAF yet? Because again, I mentioned the previous decades where it was really just about, can we beat Jamaica? Can we beat Panama? And obviously you're always looking up to the Americans and Mexico. Now, you know, over the last 3 or 4 years, we put our stake in the ground in terms of this continent and certainly CONCACAF. But how do you expand beyond that? Are you reluctant to do that? Do you look at Europe? Do you look at South America and say, bring it on? Like, what kind of approach do you have to that?
Yeah, look, it's step by step. And this is an opportunity to prove as much to anyone, to ourselves, that we can be as good as we want to be, right? But I can say this, that now the mentality in the team is that whoever we play from anywhere around the world, we're not afraid. And we believe on the day that we can win. And that in itself, I think, is a big development. within the team, within the culture of the sport and of the team. You know, even when we played Mexico back in September after we beat the U.S., you could see that Mexico feared our physicality, you know, and you could see that they knew they had to foul. They had to be very combative. They couldn't let us get out into open space because they knew we were very dynamic. And I think even inside the team, there was disappointment, but there was that we didn't dominate and beat Mexico the way we wanted to. But I think they also could feel the sense that this was a different kind of Mexico game than maybe what it's been like in the past.
Jesse Marsch with us, head coach of the national team. In terms of friendlies, like once you get past the Nations League and you get closer to 2026, how do you balance that? Like, how do you go about preparing that? And how do you contact different countries around the world and say, we'd like to do this and we'd like to do it here? I'm sure you'd like to get some on home soil, probably at BMO, maybe Rogers Place out in Vancouver. If you can, prepare for the actual, events because you're going to be playing there.
You're right about all of it. And we already have a real good start on some really good opponents. So it is challenging because when everybody else is playing qualifiers, we don't need to qualify because we're the host nation. We have to find gaps in other team schedules and then invite them here and then create relationships. So we'll be making announcements soon, but I can tell you that already from what it looks like, the docket of teams and challenges that we will have in 2025 is exciting. And we're gonna have some tough opponents, but again, I think it's a chance for us to test ourselves against some of the world's best teams.
It's going to be amazing, and again, we're just over 500 days away, but it's going to happen quick. And 48 countries in there now, right? More groups, and the expectations are going to be high based on merit because of the way you played.
Yeah.
But also, I'm sure, again, we're still a ways away, and if everyone's healthy and feeling good, you got to be thinking, we can get out of the group stage, right? You still don't know quite who you're going to play yet, but why wouldn't you have that mentality?
Well, look, the first thing is to continue to the development of the team, the continued connection with the community. So this week I'm traveling from Halifax to Vancouver across the country and doing coaching symposiums, meeting with spheres of influence in the sport, and making sure that everybody feels a real strong connection to the movement that we're trying to create so that we have a true home field advantage, right? So when we say a home World Cup, we want to make sure in those 3 matches just at the start in that group phase action that we electrify the country, that the anticipation and the expectation for what team we're going to be, how we're going to perform, the excitement around our team is massive. That makes us feel unbeatable, right? Like this is a huge advantage and we have to make sure we take advantage of it. And then, if we win the group, we have then the potential to play also the next 2 home games in Vancouver.
Is that right?
At home in Canada.
Huge.
So the motivation to not just get out of the group, but to win the group, to make sure that we stay at home and continue to push to go as far as we can. And, I've had questions all day today about, what do you think about winning? I'm like, why would we go in the tournament and not say we're going to win the thing?
Right, exactly.
Right? So obviously I know we're a long shot, but this team the belief is growing and we're going to go after it.
Can't wait for it. 500 days, just a bit more than 500 days away. We're looking forward to it. Enjoy the coast to coast. It's a big country, man. You know that.
Beautiful weather right now.
Oh, it's just stunning outside. You can't beat it. It's so spectacular. He is Jesse Marsch, the head coach of the men's national team. Great seeing you, man. Thank you for doing this.
All right, man.
There he is, Jesse Marsch. Impressive guy.
He is, man.
An impressive guy. And he's got belief, and he's sending a message saying it's time to grow up here, boys. Let's get after it.
I love that.
I like that message.
I love the idea that, hey, we're not just underdogs. We can have a little bit of arrogance. We can have a little bit of swagger.
Well, and again, with 48 teams now in it, and we don't know who they're going to play yet, but they're probably going to have a somewhat watered-down group.
Yeah.
So why can't you win it? And like you said, if you get out and you win your group stage, you're going to play multiple playoff games on Canadian soil.
Exciting.
Hugely valuable. It's just going to be amazing. And again, 500 days, that's a long time, I get it, but it happens quick.
Not really.
It happens quick in sports.
You're right.
So thanks to Jesse Marsch. We appreciate him joining us. We'll come back with our best bets. Powered by FanDuel. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, today's best bets are powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. We have a shots total parlay here. Brady Tkachuk, 4+ shots in Boston tonight. Erik Karlsson, 3+ shots against Anaheim. Roman Josi, 3+ shots against San Jose. All right? That paying plus 518.
Ooh.
Love that. shot parlay. Today's best bets powered by FanDuel. Live same-game parlays are now available for every NHL game on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Please play responsibly, 18+, physically located in Ontario. All right, Raptors 5-point dog in Atlanta tonight. Trae Young, there was some concern that maybe he wouldn't play. It sounds like he will play.
Quickly's not playing.
Quickly, well, when does he play? It's a report when Emmanuel Quickly decides he will play. That's the report.
Breaking news.
Breaking news that
He might
Quickly
actually do his job.
actually is going to play. I'm not sure he plays in 20 games this year.
It's crazy.
Yeah, he's hurt all the time.
It's just
He's always hurt.
And it's in one way it's like good for the tank.
Yeah, it helps the tank.
But bad for assessing what you got.
You paid him already.
You paid him $150 million.
You committed to him.
Yeah.
And it's still does he mesh well with Scotty?
We don't know.
How does it work? We have no idea. No idea. Next year we'll figure it out.
Maybe.
Right? Cooper Flag, Quickly.
There you go.
Scotty Barnes.
Now you're talking.
Now we've got something. All right, Dave, good seeing you.
Great seeing you.
Great stuff by the O-Dog today, too.
Outstanding.
O-Dog, unbelievable show for the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill. Dave Feschuk of the Toronto Star. Thanks to everyone behind the scenes for helping out. We appreciate it. Everyone for tuning in today. TV, radio, podcast, web. We appreciate that. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy the games tonight. We're back tomorrow at 4 p.m. We'll chat then.